copywritten production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
So I am calling this meeting to order and ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So welcome to today's board meeting. I'm Karen McAdam, the Vice President of the 2024 Board of Directors. This regular meeting of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Board of Directors is audio and video recorded by the RCSC management and staff. Please be advised that there is to be no recording of this meeting by any individual. And please do take out your personal devices and make sure that they're on silent mode. I'd like to introduce our timekeeper and management personnel. Today, Director Steve Collins will be running the clock. And from our management team, we have Matthew DeLuzanski, our General Manager, Kevin McCurdy, Finance Support Senior Leader. I know he's here. Okay, thank you. Mike Weepred, Facilities Senior Leader. Mike Dermeyer, Non-Golf Senior Leader. Is Brian Duth, who is being represented by Chris Lynham. Thank you. Debbie Giles, Assistant to the General Manager, and Marcia Johnson, the Board Coordinator. Good morning. And I'd also like to recognize our audiovisual engineers. We have Alan Kleinhans and Doreen Rafferty and Carla Young. Thank you for the very fine job that you always do that allows this meeting to be posted later on to our website, or actually on YouTube. So the first item of business today is the roll call of the voting members by Secretary Richtmeyer.
Okay, President Fimmel.
So I just have a question on that. She is trying to call in. Do we have a connection there, or?
She has indicated she can hear, but I don't know that we can hear her yet.
Okay, so
We're making progress.
She is present. We'll consider that a presence for purposes of the quorum confirmation, and we'll work on that, that connection.
Vice President McAdam.
Here.
Director Foster.
Here.
Me, I'm here. Director Ruff.
Present.
Director Nettis-Syme.
Here.
Did I get it right? Yeah. Yes. Director Keiss.
Here.
Director Borski is absent. And then Director Collins.
Yes, we're here. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Vice President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. So I would like to ask if any members of the board have questions about the agenda. No.
Short, sweet, to the point.
So there being no questions, the agenda has been approved. The minutes of the March 28th, 2024 meeting were posted for director's review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? There being no corrections or additions, the minutes of the March 28th, 24 meeting are approved. Thank you. I would now like to ask if there are any questions on the treasurer's report.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, actually, we normally do that. That's not it, yeah.
Since Treasurer Borski is not here, I will read the treasurer's report. The balance of unrestricted funds as of March 31st, 2024 was $20,600,000, which includes a $2.5 million cash reserve. Restricted funds include the Preservation and Improvement Fund, PIF, and Capital Reserve Fund. As of March 31st, 2024, PIF had a balance of $33.5 million, and the Capital Reserve Fund had a balance of $5.7 million. The carry-forward balance, which is a component of the unrestricted funds balance, was $6.9 million as of March 31st, 2024. The corporation operated within its budget year-to-date in 2024. Investment report for the first quarter of 2024. RCSC's investment policy, bylaws Article 13, is stringent in its requirements with a priority of investment objectives which are placed in this order: safety, liquidity, and yield. As of March 31st, 2024, $4,391,030 cost basis of the $2.5 million unrestricted cash reserve and other unrestricted funds have been invested in various FDIC-insured Treasury bills and corporate bonds. In 2024, these investments, along with the unrestricted money market account, have produced interest income of $85,952, with management fees of $2,647, for a net income on unrestricted fund investments of $83,305. At the end of March 2024, $4,642,835 cost basis of the $5.7 million restricted capital reserve fund has been invested in various FDIC-insured Treasury bills, mutual funds, and corporate bonds. Year-to-date, these investments have produced interest income of $131,018, with management fees of $2,850, for a net income on restricted capital reserve investments of $128,168. At the end of the first quarter of 2024, $27,902,396 cost basis of the $33.5 million in the Restricted Preservation and Improvement Fund has been invested in various FDIC-insured Treasury bills, mutual funds, and corporate bonds. Year-to-date, these investments have produced interest income of $128,957, with management fees of $16,706, for a net income on restricted fund investments of $112,251, and this is from Anita Borski, the treasurer.
Thank you, Director Keiss. This information is available for all at the table in the back as well. So are there any questions, comments on the treasurer's report? So seeing none, the treasurer's report is filed for audit. We also have a management report that I believe is also available for all people in attendance. Are there any questions or comments on the management report? Seeing no corrections or additions, the management report has been accepted. Next, we'll move on to the update report from our general manager. Oh, sorry. Everything okay? All right. All right.
Committees first?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Committee reports up first.
We have a committee report from bowling.
Okay, who is making this report?
Mike, you're up. Microphone right there.
Right at the podium.
You can turn it.
Stand on the other side.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I bowled for over 40 years. 20 years I've coached juniors, high school, and college. This sport...
Can you just give us your full name?
Oh, Michael Williams. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
I thought you'd already, never mind. I have bowled over 40 years. I've coached, like I said, juniors, high school, college. The sport has changed a lot since I started. We used to have the old black balls, 2 fingers, 1 thumb. You'd probably buy a bowling ball about maybe every 7 to 10 years. And then suddenly they came along with these resin balls. The first time I seen it, I said, I gotta have one of those. So I talked to my wife and she said, well, wait a minute, you just bought one 2 years ago, then your average keeps going up. Why do you need another ball? Well, trying to explain to somebody who isn't a bowler why you need a new ball is almost impossible. But after a lot of discussion, I got a new ball. The next thing that happens, 7 months later, in the next season, they came out with a Super Bowl. I just had to have it. I mean, every time you'd see these people throw it, as long as they hit the head pin, all pins fell down. I was talking to my bowling partner, Jim, and we come up with a scheme. He said, now, wait a minute. He said, what I'll do is I'll buy you a ball on your birthday, and then you can buy me a ball on my birthday. It worked, but we really did take a lot of flack. We knew we could never run this one again, little scheme. There's many ways of choosing a bowling ball. You can go down to the bowling alley and watch people roll the ball and see what ball is scoring the best. Or you can go to the manufacturer's spec. And now they'll tell you the core, they'll tell you about the cover stock, they'll tell you symmetric, asymmetric, there's many different flare potentials. By you get done, your head's spinning. So then you can go look at videos online. Of course, the people throwing those balls are professionals, so you really can't count on that happening to you when you throw that ball. But I had, up in Denver where I bowled, we had a guy on league that he bypassed that. He had a whole new type of way of picking a ball. He would go into the pro shop and he'd find a shirt he liked. And then he would go and find a ball that matched the shirt. And he was the best bowler on league, but he wasn't much of a bowler. The bowling committee closely works with rec center management to enhance the bowling experience for rec center members. The committee has assisted in enhancing the communication with the bowling centers to increase participation in new developed leagues and tournament programs. There are monthly tournaments, league bowling for all levels of experience, and free coaching opportunities that give RC members plenty of opportunity to enjoy getting out of the heat and bowling this summer. When I first arrived at Sun City, I went over and bowled at Bell Center. After 3 games, my ball came back and I wiped it down. It was clean. That told me one thing. It told me those back ends were well maintained. Over several months, I talked to some of the lane mechanics. To a person, they said that it was one of the best maintained alleys they'd ever worked at. They had plenty of parts back there and plenty of time to do preventive maintenance. Now, being a person who run water and wastewater plants, they're very important. Preventive maintenance is very important. You find out that $5 spent on preventive is going to save you $25 down the line on an emergency maintenance. The bowling center has recently been certified by the United States Bowling Congress for the next 3 years with a score of 96%. The USBC is the government body of the sport of bowling and requires new bowling centers to score a minimum of 95. With the age of our centers being what it is, 96% is a very high score. This is because of Mike and his maintenance crew that he has on those lanes. We have you find out that some of the stuff that the management staff has done to enhance the bowling experience here in Sun City is they have started 9-pin tournaments, 9-pin leagues. We have Scotch double tournaments, 9-pin color competition. All these have a tendency to bring people in. We have people bowling that hasn't bowled in 30 years coming back to the sport here in Sun City. Again, thanks to the management team, has served to enhance the bowling experience here in Sun City. Over the United States, you'll find out that bowling centers are closing down. Here in Sun City, you find out there's growth in bowling. Sun City Bowling Association now has 1,000 members, 1,030 in fact. First time we've ever had that many in the history of bowling here in Sun City. So you can see we have, the team has increased our bowling here in Sun City. As bowling dies around the country, we have growth here. Thank you much.
Thank you. So I think we're now on to the Recreation Center update report. Mr. Dulazansky.
Sorry, Steve.
Question.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, my name's Steve Collins. I'm the chairman of the COC. And
Which stands for what?
the Club Organization Committee. A couple of things I'd like to say is summer's approaching. A lot of my members, my COC members leave for the summer. If anybody's here would like to come and sit on the committee, we could really use your help. I don't know, since COVID, our clubs have just gone crazy. We used to be able, for 30 years, 40 years, we could sit down in a meeting at a club, and if we had an issue, we could talk to each other, the board, the residents, and you could settle it and get past it and move on like the grown adults we are. But something happened, I don't know what, during COVID, and everybody wants their way, only their way, and right now. And some of these issues that I have to keep sending my people back to are so trivial, and it takes up all these volunteers' times when they could be working on better things. So please, try to work things out in your clubs, and if you have the time to join, even if it's just for the summer, please contact me, and we'll get you in there, because I know I'm going to need help. And Mr. Dittmeyer, I want to, it's unbelievable what you've done with bowling, and my hat is off to you and to your whole staff. Thank you.
Are there any other committee reports that I don't know about? Okay, then we'll move on to the center update report.
Good morning. How's everybody doing today? I thank you for being here, and hello to all of those who will watch this on the internet. So while time really flies when you're having fun, and when you work at a place where recreation is the first name, you should be having fun, at least most of the time. I've been in this GM role now for almost 7 months, and I must say it has been fun, exciting, challenging. It's never dull and boring. And even at my advanced age, I have a lot to learn. So here are a few things you may find of interest. Please know how it really saddens me and bothers me that so many of you were put through the distress, trauma, and emotional pain of being told that both of our Sun City libraries were going to be closed. To repurpose the areas or to save money, that simply was not true. Only the Fairway Library was being discussed for possible closure due to safety concerns. My mistake was working with the Maricopa County Real Estate Department that initiated the discussion with me in February, rather than dealing directly with the Maricopa County Library District. That has been remedied a couple weeks ago, when we had a great meeting with the Library District out at their fantastic facility out in the White Mountains. And we should have a new 5-year lease for both libraries in the near future and well before the current lease runs out, which is June 30th. Next, I'd like to talk about the infamous $20 million of deferred maintenance that was mentioned last summer. Some folks have thought that this was emergency repairs that needed to be done immediately to keep us operating in a safe manner. Please know, we always focus on critical safety items immediately, if not sooner. So where did that $20 million number come from? Well, when you have as many assets as we do here, it's prudent to keep track of them with regard to their installation date or purchase date, their original cost, their estimated life, and their repair or replacement cost. And those costs, the expected life, the repair costs, and the replacement costs are estimates. You don't know what they're going to be exactly at the time. They're never really set in stone. In fact, we know they're going to change over time. What this asset list becomes is known as a reserve study. It tells you approximately how much money you should have in reserve each year to keep all of your assets in good shape. It's a standard business practice. Our reserve study last summer, showed that we needed about $20 million to catch up. That was the source of the infamous $20 million in deferred maintenance. Work on the reserve study started last year. Kevin and I worked on it quite a bit with others, and it continues today. We have a new project manager focused on updating those critical elements, the expected life and the cost assumptions. That work on the reserve study should be substantially completed in May, in time to be folded into the new 5-year plan. And it looks like the deferred maintenance number is going to be closer to 16 or 17 million. And with the 6 million plus that we're doing this year, that should bring it down to almost 10 million by the end of the year. So through both adjusting the estimates and the work we're doing this year, we've cut that in half. And we have the funds to cover these expenses over the next few years and beyond. So let's talk about something else, the new 5-year plan. The new 5-year plan team is a management team that's comprised of roughly a third from the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee, a third from the, do I have a 3-minute bell? I thought I had 4 minutes in that. I can stop if you want.
You can continue.
There's also the long-range planning. So you've got these 2 committees that have members, standing committees, long-range planning, budget, finance, and audit, and then there's a third from the management leadership. So we try to keep this team small and agile so they can get work done. First of all, thank you, thank you, thank you. This team has taken a process that was only in my head when I was interviewing for general manager, and I put it into some words in December and gave it to that team in January. They have flushed it out into a more robust process with an initial output that was delivered to a joint session of those 2 committees, the long-range planning and the budget and finance and audit, and a few interested members. That happened a couple of weeks ago. Now, the final output of that team will be a 5-year operating and capital improvement budget, the SIF we call it now, and a 10-year, 5 years really isn't enough for the PIF, so there's going to be a 10-year Preservation and Improvement Fund budget. So these will be submitted to the board in both the committees mid or end of May. Again, thanks to this team. This effort will feed right into the new budget process schedule, which was on the update this past month, the front page. And lastly, I'd like to talk about our centers and the new leadership structure that's in place. I spoke about the organization a couple months ago, and it's also in one of our updates. And really with that new leadership structure, easy for me to say, it's how we can simplify the communication needs that need to be going on here. We're working diligently on improving our communications to the members and to the community and to our staff. So there's many things going on at every center. And some of them you never ever see. And other ones are so obvious you never can miss them. But we need to communicate better about what's going on in each center, especially when it applies to the very obvious. For example, the spa, indoor spa at Bell, or recently the first doors you go into that slide open at Bell, they've been open as we're working on some things. So even though there's work being done on both, the status of that work isn't understood, and it's not easily, discoverable. So to remedy that, each center is going to develop and make available in the centers, and maybe we'll even post it on the front door, a top 10 list of the items being worked on in that center, with a comment on what the status of that is. So some of these things are in engineering design, some of them are in cost estimating. Some of these things cost a lot of money, over $25,000 to $100,000, or maybe $250,000, that we have to go through those steps. And also it will have not just a comment on the status, but it'll have an estimated completion date. So that way people won't be thinking, well, they're just letting this go. It's not. There's nothing of any critical nature or even routine nature that we are just ignoring. Mike and his crew and others, they're just doing a phenomenal job. Also, our video team, also known as In Focus, is going to be making a series of videos, one per center, that's going to talk to the center leader, it's going to talk to other people about that center, and give sort of an overview of the center, what's there and what's going on there. The video series should be starting to come out next month sometime. So thank you to that group of In Focus folks and volunteers that are making that happen. And we have a few other exciting things coming along with that group too. So as usual, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Things are changing in many positive ways, and it will continue. Thank you very much.
So thank you. We'll move on to president comments, and I had two things, but the first was to let you know about the 5-year lease agreements for both of our libraries, and Mr. DeLozanski has covered that. But I do have a second item that has come up that's new and represents a new and unexpected opportunity for RCSC regarding a vacant property in the heart of Sun City. The property used to house an acute care hospital rehabilitation center at the corner of Thunderbird and 111th Avenue on the southwest corner. It's a 4.6-acre parcel of land with about 50,000 square feet of building space under roof, and it was put up for auction last week. RCSC did not participate in the auction proceedings. The reserve, which is the minimum amount that the seller is willing to accept as a winning bid, was not met. So at this point, the property remains unsold. The owner's agent has since approached RCSC to see if there might be interest in purchasing the property. We think it's advisable to at least consider possible options, which of course will involve quite a lot of community input. Let me assure you that no decisions have been made other than to begin the discussion. Pros and cons definitely exist, and while we've begun to sort of imagine what those might be, many of them will only come to light as the discovery process unfolds. So while this is, of course, not on today's agenda because it's breaking new news, we anticipate that some of you at least would like to be able to ask questions or make comments. As a result, after today's meeting is adjourned, we invite you to stay for a brief introduction to the property. We have about 5 or 6 slides that we'll be able to show you, and we will do our very best to answer any questions that come up based on the quite limited information that we have at this point in time. Thank you. Okay, so the first item of business is a motion on behalf of the Election Committee to amend the bylaws. And as chair of the Elections Committee, it falls to me to present this committee recommendation. So on behalf of the Elections Committee, I move to amend bylaws Article 7, titled Nomination and Appointment Procedures, Sections 2 and 3, as follows. And you should all have this in print, so I'll summarize and say that under Section 2, we're changing the first line from saying that members shall be invited to become candidates to say on or before the first Monday in June, board candidate packets will be available. And under Section 3, petition and application of candidates, to change the deadline for submission of this packet from the first Friday in October to instead a scheduled date in the candidate packet. So coming from a committee, this doesn't require a second, but I do have the opportunity to speak first for its adoption, which I will do now. So the Elections Committee has a fairly limited scope of activity, but one of its chief tasks is to review election procedures and recommend to the board changes deemed beneficial to the elections process. In an effort to lengthen the runway for potential candidates to submit the items necessary to become official candidates, the committee is recommending that we strike the currently posted date of the first Friday in October and to allow the Elections Committee to set a later date in October based on any given year's calendar. As an example, for this year, that would mean that we would be moving the deadline for submission from October 4th to October 25th. So Section 1 of this article remains in effect, which requires the slate of candidate to be finalized by the last board meeting in October. And that's the reason for the somewhat vague language of saying that the date will be each year put out at the beginning of June for what the deadline is, but that's a little bit dependent on when that last board meeting, when the last board meeting in October takes place. This year it happens to be October 31st, I believe. So we've been able to set the deadline for this year to October 25th, pending approval of this change to our bylaws. So, Ms. Johnson, would you please read the names of members who signed up to speak on this motion only?
When I read your name, please come up to the podium and state your name and member number. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage. The first person that signed up is Jan Diaz. Oh, you don't want? Okay. And then the second person would be Sue Mach. Well, you can only talk about the items that are on the agenda, so. Okay, so you don't want to talk either? Madam Vice President, everyone that signed up has spoken.
Okay, so is there any discussion by the directors?
My only comment would be I support the change.
Thank you. I might just want to point out that while we're trying to extend the runway, so if, it's pretty hot still here in September, and if people are traveling, then that October 4th date might seem like a really, really big challenge. And so what we're trying to do is to extend that period of time to generate potentially more interest and more applications to serve as a board candidate. What it does mean is that because the election date is always scheduled for the second Tuesday in December, it somewhat shortens the period of online voting. But right now, that period of time is 5 weeks. And we'll be cutting that down to about 2.5 weeks, which we don't think is a difficulty for people within a space of 2.5 weeks to vote online if that's the way that they choose to vote. There are still options for mail-in ballots and for walk-in voting on Election Day itself. Okay, so Secretary Richtmeyer, will you please take the roll call vote?
Sure. Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes?
Director Nedesim? Syme?
Yes.
Vice President McAdams?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
So apparently we'll have to take an
Okay, we might.
abstain on that, okay.
Okay.
She just voted yes.
She just
Oh, she did
voted
vote yes, okay.
Okay. All right, and I vote yes. So vote of 8 yes and 1 not here. Passes.
Okay, so with a vote of 8 in favor and 0 no votes, the motion is adopted, and as per regular practice, will be brought forward for its second reading at next month's meeting. So the next item of business is a motion on behalf of the Golf Advisory Committee to amend Board Policy 17 titled Golf. Director Keiss?
On behalf of the Golf Advisory Committee, I move to amend Board Policy 17 titled Golf, section titled Green Committee, paragraph 4 as follows. In addition to each selected Green Committee member having a vote on the Golf Advisory Committee, the President and Vice President of the Sun City Men's Golf Association, SCMGA, the President of the Sun City Women's Golf Association, SCWGA, and the President of the Sun City Women's 9-Hole Association will also have a vote.
So again, coming from a committee, this does not require a second. Director Keiss, as maker of the motion, do you wish to speak first for its adoption?
Yes, I do. This motion was carried by the committee on a vote of 14 for, 2 against, and 1 abstention. The current Golf Advisory Committee membership consists of 1 male and 1 female from each of the 8 golf courses, which is 16 votes, 8 women and 8 men. Plus 1 vote for each of the presidents of the SCMGA, SCWGA, and the Ladies 9-Hole Sun City Golf Association. This results in a gender imbalance of 10 female committee members and 9 male committee members, which the committee felt should be evened up. So what this motion does is it gives 10 male members and 10 female members, so we have a gender balance on the committee, which the committee thought was the correct way to do business.
Okay, Ms. Johnson, please read the names of members who signed up to speak on this motion only.
William Talbert. Oh, well, you signed up, and that usually is to speak, so that's okay. All right, then no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Okay, so the motion before us on behalf of the Golf Advisory Committee is to amend Board Policy 17 titled Golf. Is there any discussion by the directors? So, Secretary Richtmeyer, will you please take the roll call vote?
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes?
Director Nedesim?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes?
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Coming? Yes.
Yes, okay. And I vote yes, so 8 yes, motion passes.
So, right, with 8 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion is adopted. So under new business, the next item is a motion by Director Ruff to amend Board Policy 24. Director Ruff.
I move to amend Board Policy Number 24 titled Preservation and Improvement Fee, Capital Improvement Fee as follows. Alan, if you'd please put the document up on the screen. We're going to modify the language around the death of a single owner who was married at the time of purchase of a property to not require a new PIF or SIF fee on the transfer of the property to a spouse as sole owner. We're also modifying language requiring ownership of 1 year of a property that is sold and subsequently another Sun City property is purchased within a year of that sale. That would stop flippers from getting refunded PIF fee and SIF fee on new property not owned for a year. And then there's some other detail on the PIF capital and SIF capital, and I'll go through those now. If you scroll down, there's just a couple minor changes in this part of it. Throughout the policy, there's the words PIF assessment and for later on SIF assessment. Instead of calling it assessment, it's a fee now. So it's a preservation improvement fee. The assessment assumes that you're going to be repaying something in the future on an assessment. This should be a one-time fee for each owner. So that's the major change on the first page. The second page on paragraph 7 of the PIF fee section, section 1, paragraph A7. In the event the remaining owner was not the original payer of the PIF unless legally married to the owner at the time of purchase. So the marriage certificate may be required or marriage status proven by disclaimer deed recorded with Maricopa County. What happened is in the state of Arizona, it's you both own everything that you own. Sometimes for legal reasons, people just put one of the spouses on the deed and not both. So then when the other, whichever spouse died, if they were on the deed, they're now 100% and they have to pay a SIF and PIF fee. So this would remove that requirement. They can prove easily through the Maricopa County records that there was a quick claim to put just one spouse on it, and then they don't have to pay that on the death of that individual. There's not a ton of those going on, but I think there's one in the active status right now. Paragraph C, 1 is in C, the last paragraph under the C paragraph, it says a refund of the PIF may be available if. And paragraph 3 and 4, it starts with if the heir sells, if after a death, so those ifs are removed. Paragraph 1, C1, the sale or disposition, transfer of a previous primary Arizona residence in Sun City, Arizona is owned for 1 or more years and is made within 1 year of the purchase, acquisition, transfer, or inheritance of the other Arizona residence in Sun City, Arizona. That's the part where we're trying to keep the flippers from getting repaid their SIF and PIF because they're selling one and buying one within less than a year. There's a couple minor changes. Another change is eliminates paragraph F and puts it under D4. So D4 is projects funded for the PIF fund must be approved by the board of directors. 2, minimum of $300,000. 3, and at one point we had 10 years in there, we're going to leave it at 15. Have a depreciable life of at least 15 years. And 4, are not to be spent for normal operating or maintenance expenses. Section 2, capital improvement fee, same change of the SIF assessment to the SIF fee. And then paragraph A, 7 is the same as A7 under the PIF. And then under paragraph C, same language, owned for 1 or more years and is made within 1 year. The next page, D, we eliminated paragraph F, which said they're not to be spent for normal operating or maintenance expenses. This is the capital improvement fee. Moved that to paragraph 4, and then after discussion, and I would when I'm done, I'll probably ask Kevin to explain why, that we're eliminating that not used for normal operating or maintenance expenses because things get capitalized in those processes. So we don't want to say we can't use the money on something whose life's going to be extended and it becomes a capital expense. And then down at section 4 is just an update of fees in there. And on the 5th page, just a couple of minor edits. Owner's accounts is/are. Owners are responsible for providing and maintaining current and accurate bill information. And then paragraph C under there is the RCSC reserves the right to file a lien as opposed to shall file a lien. And that's the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, do we have a second on this motion?
I'll second it for discussion, so.
Okay, seconded by Director Richtmeyer. So Director Ruff, as maker of the motion, do you wish to speak further for its adoption?
Yes, I would. Talked many times with Kevin and his staff, Holly. We went back and forth on some of the language, and what I think we came up with really simplifies that language, and it simplifies the work for the people that are dealing with those PIF and SIF fees. And same thing with the flipper issue. At some point, we talked about changing the 15 years to 10, and I misunderstood that's what I thought Kevin wanted, the 10 years. After discussing with him and his staff, we went back to the 15 and did not change that. And I think that's the key issues. And Kevin, can I ask you to explain why we don't want to have that not spent for normal operating or maintenance expenses?
Yeah, Director Ruff, this came up in conversation with respect to the PIF. There was a desire to not use PIF funds on expenses that were considered normal operational or maintenance type projects, which we're fine with. It's highly unlikely that a project that has a useful life of 15 years or more is going to be considered operational or maintenance. However, with the SIF fees, there's a very high likelihood that some of the fees or some of the costs of the projects that are considered maintenance or operational, they could be, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we want to retain the ability to use SIF funds for those types of projects. And just to get a little accounting wonky here, an expenditure that does not extend the life of an asset is generally going to be expensed, even regardless of the amount of that money. So that's why we ask that we not tie our hands and say that SIF fees cannot be used on operational or maintenance projects.
Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Johnson, please read the names of members who have signed up to speak on this motion only.
The first person would be Nancy Greathouse.
Nancy Greathouse, 149885. The only question I was wondering about, when you're talking about the flippers buying the homes and how that's going to prevent them, I'm having trouble understanding how that prevents them, because it talks about them selling a property less than a year and purchasing another property. Am I missing something? And the second would be if the SIF and the PIF are available for a purchaser to get back in the case of a death, for instance, and they inherit and they can apply for that. What difference does it make if it's a flipper instead, that they sell it to maybe while someone's on their deathbed or something like that. I don't know, there's all kinds of scenarios, I'm sure. But if flippers buy it, improve the home, and sell it, why would they not be able to apply for that? I'm not on the side of flippers for any reason. I'm just wondering the variance that could come up with that.
Answer your first question. Ask me again. I lost you.
About if the flipper buys it, why can't
the one before that? Your first question.
Oh, you probably got me caught here. Okay, let me see. Oh, the ownership. They're not going to be buying another home necessarily.
Well, what happens if you're married and one spouse dies, but only one spouse was on there, then all of a sudden you own 100%, and you were on the deed for 0. So you would have to pay a PIF or a SIF in that instance. What we're saying now is if you were married at the time that the single person was put on the deed, then you don't have to pay it.
And that I'm good with.
Okay.
Mine
The
is on
second one.
The second one is on the, to modify the language requiring ownership for 1 year of a property that is sold and subsequent property purchased.
Correct.
You said that would stop flippers.
Well,
I don't know how that would stop flippers. They're not necessarily going to be buying another property.
They almost always buy another property.
Okay.
And that's because if they do it within a year, they can get their SIF and PIF fee. We think they should be paying the PIF and SIF fee. They're buying a house.
But
and
why would that
selling it.
matter? If somebody's going to get it, right?
Yes, it matters because we'd like to have the money.
Okay.
I can't think of any other reason, but
and I guess that's where I look at it, and I'm thinking that's really not fair. I mean, some flippers are simply people who are making a living by doing that, and they do a great job when they go in and remodel a home and makes it more valuable.
Absolutely.
And you're still going to get money from the new purchaser that they sell it to.
Well, this way we get it twice, but if you watch HGTV and you watch the guys that are doing that stuff, they can make a considerable amount of money off of this stuff, which is great for them. I'm happy that they're doing it, but we would like them to pay the fees.
Okay.
And if the members don't think that's a good idea, then we'll reconsider.
Okay, thank you.
Bill Pearson.
I'll wait till after.
Bill Pearson, 133438. I rise in support of this motion, especially the first part of it. I raised this topic in September of last year. It needs to get resolved. Appreciate you doing it right. In 1968, the RCSC was, the body of the RCSC was formed when the two centers merged and became an organization. 72, the official name Rec Centers of Sun City was established. So since 1968, the single greatest action taken by the board of directors from this parent organization was passing the PIF. It literally saved Sun City. That said, it was never intended to go back and get people to pay a second time when their spouse died. And I understand how it all came to pass, and I don't want to repeat the history. It just seems to me that a person that's lived in a home since 2002, been a member since 2002, be asked in 2022 to start paying $4,000+ in fees when she's never moved, never did anything other than live in the same property. So the rest of it, the whole other piece I get, but this one piece is critical you pass, because she's been trying to pay $100 a month so she can actually use her card. Just doesn't seem fair or right, so thank you.
Jacob Zarenberg? Are you going? You don't want to speak? Okay. Susan Bjork.
Hello, Board. I'm just here to say that I'm in support of this common sense motion. So thank you, Director Ruff, for raising it. Particularly, of course, the the first part. If you're married and your spouse's name isn't on the deed, it's just common sense. So thank you for that. The second part, the only thing that I called a flipper that many of us know in here and asked about this, and they said that they're told they don't get the PIF fee back at all when they flip. So this would actually be opening up the door to them, to more flippers, which is good for Sun City, actually, because we want homes to be renovated. And the way we're going to get that done is by opening up the door to flippers to do that. So I just don't want it to be an impediment to other flippers, because we want to improve the homes that particularly need improvement and haven't been improved in Sun City. But it was just a little odd to me that this particular flipper said, we don't get it back at all. The new owner has to pay a new one. So this would open up the door for them to buy again and do a repetitive process, which is good. They get the other one back, and then they invest in another property to continually improve properties in Sun City. So either way, I'm in support of it. So thanks for raising, again, a common sense motion.
Would you like to make a comment on that? No. Okay. All right.
Madam President.
So just before, has anybody else signed up
One
to
more.
speak on this? And then it will be time for the director's
Okay.
presentation.
The last person would be Lorraine, and I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Stialaba? Okay. Good.
Lorraine Shalaba, 145957. First of all, I wanted to I went to the finance meeting and I tried to understand everything that they presented. And as I go to the pool every day at Bell, I try to repeat your explanations of what was happening. And I really appreciate you getting the front door fixed, because that front door was left open. So hands to you for getting the front door fixed. However, in my quest of walking around the pool, there are a lot of issues that have gone on at the Bell Pool for years. The indoor spa, it's got big, gigantic things.
So Lorraine, excuse me for just a minute. We are restricted right now to comments based on this motion only. Do you have anything that you'd like to say to this motion itself?
I purchased my house from a flipper, and he's pretty prominent in Sun City, and I think if I have a widowed older woman who is struggling that was burdened with these fees, and then a flipper who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars from doing a flip, and we are in arrears for money, I think you're passing it on a big financial windfall from the flippers, because the flippers make a lot of money when they do flip. They sell the house for 2 and 3 times what they purchased it for. So I don't think that they would even hiccup at paying an extra $5,000. And I think we would appreciate the money rather than putting a burden on some older person who is a widow who has lived in Sun City for 20, 25 years and is scrambling on a Social Security income trying to make her ends meet. So my opinion, my humble opinion, is that you're missing a big financial opportunity. I don't think the flippers would hiccup at all at paying those fees. And Sun City could really use the money.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, so the motion before us is to amend Board Policy 24 titled Preservation and Improvement Fee, Capital Improvement Fee. Is there any discussion by directors?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President. Kevin, I think the lady was correct that we do not issue flippers refunds.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Some.
I thought if they have to live in the property.
And that's the rub.
Okay, well, this motion takes that part out of it.
Correct.
And so I would like to make a friendly amendment to say they have to live in that home.
That's what we're trying to avoid, Director Collins, is that if a flipper lives 75 miles or more away and shows that as their primary residence address, or if they go to the DOT website and change their primary residence address to the house being flipped, then they do qualify as being primary residents of that property. The flippers that are being truthful and saying that they're not using that home as their primary residence don't qualify for the PIF refund. It's the ones that are saying that that is my primary residence, or that I live more than 75 miles away from the property, that are taking advantage of the rules and getting those PIF refunds. So by saying that you need to own the home for a year or more, we're just eliminating all those loopholes and saying, if you don't hold the home, or if you don't own the home for more than a year, then you don't qualify for a PIF refund.
So some of these flippers have 7 homes going. So they finish one and they just wait until the 1 year, and then they get their PIF back.
Correct.
And they can just continue to do that.
Correct.
Where this PIF and SIF, I thought, was a thing to benefit our homeowners.
Precisely
And
why we're proposing this
We're extending
change.
this to people that have no intention whatsoever to live here.
What we're doing is we're removing those loopholes, and this will allow us to collect the PIF and the SIF when a home is flipped, regardless of whether the seller buys another Sun City property within a year.
So management agrees with this motion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So just for clarification, Steve, you had mentioned that you wanted to bring a friendly amendment. You're withdrawing that. Okay.
I will not.
Thank you. Other director comments? Director Keiss?
Yeah, going along with what Steve said, my understanding of flippers is that they do not, if they finish a property, they're not going to take a long time to do it, and they're not going to want to wait around for more than a year to get their money back on it. So I think this encourages that, so that it makes them actually pay for it, as opposed to waiting a year. They don't want to hold that money and hold that out because it costs them time and money to do that. I do have a couple little things. Paragraph 7 in the beginning, there's 2 misspellings in the marriage area in May.
We corrected that.
Okay. I have reservations about the SIF saying that it's not to be spent for operating expenses. I understand what Kevin is saying, but I think it also opens up things like, for future boards, if they say that, okay, EPCOR just raised their rates, what, 20%? If we don't have that money in the budget for it, you know, a board could say, okay, I need this money, I'm going to pay it out of the SIF, which is what the SIF wasn't intended to. Or if someone says, we need to raise wages because it hasn't been done for a while for an operating expense, because that is a normal operating expense, then it could be used for SIF. And I don't think that's what SIF was used for. I understand what you're saying, but I think it opens up those areas of operating expenses that we may not have intended SIF to be used for, that a board could misappropriate the funds for in the future. So that's what I have reservations for.
And I'll just point out, Doctor, I just gave you a promotion, Director.
No,
Keiss.
no.
The SIF fees are board-restricted fees. I don't get to spend them on what I want.
No, I'm
I
not
have to
saying you,
present-
I'm saying the board could decide to do it.
Correct.
Yes.
But the board can decide at any point in time to change the bylaws and the board policy and do whatever they want with board-restricted funds.
That's
So-
true. It just doesn't make it easy for them.
So do you want that left back in?
I would rather have that for operating expenses put back in, but that's my opinion.
Okay, I'd like, all right, so I have a different perspective than everybody. Because to me, replacing rooftop units, yes, it's maintenance, but it's also an improvement. So if we narrow the SIF down to this, could we have, or could we still purchase $1 million worth of rooftop units or dehumidification systems? We can't with this SIF, the way that it's written, correct?
If we leave the restriction in place that says we can't use SIF money for operational or maintenance expenses, and we needed to repair a roof, and that repair was going to cost $1 million, but was not going to extend the life of the roof, I could not use SIF money for that repair.
Okay, I'm good.
Director Collins?
All right, and what he just said, so couldn't we just leave the maintenance part in there? Connie, would that answer your question? Take out operational and
No,
leave maintenance?
I think it's fine, because there's funds already available that are set aside for emergency roof repair and whatever, that type of thing. So there's still that umbrella there. It's just that we're not going to take it from this particular pot.
Okay.
So I think I'm okay.
Okay. Then I would ask Secretary Richtmeyer to please take the roll call vote on the recommended changes to Board Policy 24.
Director Keiss?
With reservations, I say yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nettesheim?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
Okay. And I vote yes. So vote 8-0.
So with 8 in favor and no one opposed, the motion is adopted. Okay.
We have to have a second reading in,
Yes.
That's correct.
okay, just
Correct.
making sure.
That's true. So this is it has passed its first reading is what I should have said. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that correction. All right. The next meeting will be the exchange meeting on May 13th at 9 a.m. in this auditorium. And the next meeting of the Board of Directors will be on May 30th at 9 a.m. in the Sundial Auditorium. So I am repeating the invitation for anyone who's interested in finding out a little bit more about the property that has become available and which we have been approached about whether we have any interest. We have a very, very short presentation to make to you because this is really fresh and hot off the press. We don't have a lot of information, but we're happy to share what we have with you after we adjourn this meeting. So there being no further business and without objection, this meeting will be adjourned. Don't forget to turn your phones back on, and thank you. Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.